Okay.
It's an app like WhatsApp. It could be even stored anything on your phone.
Oh.
It's all on cloud, so it doesn't take up space.
Okay. I didn't know.
Telegram, there's an app called Telegram.
I don't see everybody migrating soon.
I know, but if you did it, they would just like
Connected to mobile device.
You don't have to save your room on your phone. You can set access.
What do you mean Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
And iCloud.
Part of the advantage is you get to download it yourself.
Okay. For some reason it's still working on Wi-Fi.
Okay, recording.
All right. Three lines from the bottom on page AYIN Daled. Line starts with the word utzmi. Yeah. So the Rebbe says that midos are rooted in the principle that one has what's called the hergesh atzmo. He feels and senses the significance of his own life, his own soul. And this is the root from midos. Because midos, the Rebbe doesn't say this, but this is the Indian they explain, because midos is that level where a person relates to the practical world. This is entirely about himself, his own experience in the world. And if his experience if his life is insignificant, then he would not have any definition of his experience. Midas means the definition of the experience. How do you relate to it? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so forth. Avon, Yira. But if his presence and his experience is insignificant, then there would be no definition to how he experiences it. So if we put it in perspective, everybody is taken aback by the Rebbe's words, hergesh atzmo, sensing and feeling himself. It seems to be kind of counterintuitive from a chassidus perspective. In chassidus, you're not supposed to have hergesh atzmo. But we don't understand, we don't realize that this is a phenomenon based on the divine truth in a person. As we discussed yesterday, just as a ratzon, the will, is the basis for sechel. However, what does that mean? It's basis of sechel. It is not, as some people would interpret, you understand the way you want to understand. No, the ratzon is a basis for sechel, means that only because there is ratzon, there is what to understand. The understanding is significant. If there is no ratzon, there is no significance to understanding. What does that mean? If there is no we discussed already, if there is no significance of if there's no will in the utilization of space, then there's no significance of what this space is about, how large it is. This is the simple relationship between ratzon and sechel. Sechel takes the ratzon, takes the significance of the environment, of that which ratzon gives significance to, and defines it on a sechel level. How does that reflect itself in sechel? And similarly in midas. Midas is how you relate to that which is important to you. But if there is no important, then there's no midas. This is the principle of hergesh atzmo. Okay, so we'll as I said, we'll be starting on 4 lines from the bottom. The line begins utzmi. Hergesh atzmo lives his if he doesn't have a sense of his own significance. At the end of that line, excuse me, because shekol inyan hamidos, that the entire phenomenon of midos, einam boyin, they do not come forth, umisoirim, or wake up and get aroused, rak alidei hergesh atzmo, except through, as a result of the hergesh atzmo, of sensing himself. As we discussed yesterday or the day before, that if a person excuse me, observes something of that should call forth in him from chesed or gvura or whatever it is, if he does not have a sense of significance of the environment in which he lives, of his own life, then this observation will not elicit any kind of reaction. He'll be equal to whatever he sees. Only because as hergesh atzmo, that's how midas come forth. Lavad midas atzmi metivim, except for the midas atzmi. Atzmi means essential midas. Midas that draw from the person himself, not as a result of the environment, not as a result of observation, of sechel. Midas atzmi, betivim, natural midas. We already discussed it the other day, but we'll review this. Midas atzmi betivim, essential midas. Midas that are reflective of who he is. She'einam boyim etzad hasechel, because these midas do not come due to sechel. Rak mitzad hergesh atzmi. V'loi mitzad hergesh atzmi, and not due to the sensing of himself, of the importance of himself. Ki'im, only rather mipnei shezehu atzmo yomahusei. These midas come because this is atzmo. This is him. This is himself, and this is his reality. The ahava zois, this ahava, if it doesn't come into sechel, then how does it come about? This ahava, he bechinas ratzon. In truth, this ahava is the aspect of ratzon, noi ahava. This is not properly translated as ahava. We'll go a little further and then we'll come back and discuss it a bit. The midas of ahava he, because the midah of ahava, again, the word midah means measure. Measure means that there is an application of sechel. That's where measure comes from. There is that which comes directly mitzad the nefesh, and then how this inyan, this chayes nefesh is measured according to the circumstance. So midas ha'ava, in contrast to ratzon, is loy she'hadover ha'ohuv hu me'atzmo mehusa. The principle of ahava is not that this thing which is beloved is me'atzmo mehusa, is of his own self and his own reality. Ki'im, rather, mipnei she'hadover toiv lo. The union of midas ahava is because this thing is good to him, good for him. And therefore it comes as a result of hergesh atzmo, of sensing himself, of sensing the importance of his own importance. Just a couple of lines. V'ahavo atzmis. But then when we say ahavo atzmis, the ahavo of the etzem, the atzmi is essential ahavo. It's ahavo that's reflective of who he is himself. He bechinas ratzon. That in fact is the aspect of ratzon. The who, and in what way do we translate that? It is the fact that he wants that which is himself. Himself. We have to discuss ratzon, and we'll come back to this. He wants that which is atzmo mahusay. As, for example, Avos ho'av el habein, the love of a father to his son, or Yavos habein el ho'av. Or the ahava of the son to his father. The ho'ava bozer, where in that situation the ahava of father and son to father, this ahava who inyan ha'rotzon, this in fact is the principle of the ratzon, sheroitze, that he wants ma shehu atzmo mahus, he wants that which is his own self. Without any kind of reasoning or any kind of understanding. Okay, so let's interrupt for a moment and focus in and try to define the principle of ratzon. Ratzon, as we said many times, really is beyond sechel. As we say, ratzon is not based on sechel. Ratzon is on the contrary. Thank you. Ratzon, in fact, is the basis for sechel. It is much superior to sechel. This is what gives sechel a place to be. Thank you. Yes, I gave you. It looks like you have.
No, I don't. I'm not. I have a cold. I'm just sitting here.
That's all you have, a cold?
I'm just sitting here. I have nothing behind my look.
No ratzon?
Ratzon got me here. But,
welcome. What?
Ratzon got me here, but...
oh, okay.
Yeah, ratzon and hergesh utzmi are being used as the same thing?
No. Hergesh atzmo, that is after ratzon.
But the way that ratzon is the basis for sechel, hergesh utzmi is the basis for.
Hergesh utzmi is the basis for midas. Ratzon is the basis for sechel, on a totally different level. As I said, I'd like to discuss ratzon, but I need a full. We have to understand this is beyond sechel. There's no way I can kind of lay it out and show it in piecemeal. But we all have ratzon, and I'm going to try to identify that which we already have, which we're not aware of what we have. The first principle I'd like to discuss, which we already did before again. The Torah tells us that when man was created, Adam Rishon was created, Vayipach be'apov nishmas chaim. Hashem blew in his nostrils a neshama of life. This is not mentioned in any other creatures that were created also, living creatures. But he Odom nefesh chaya, and then as a result of nishmas chayim, the Odom became nefesh chaya. Nefesh chaya, Rashi says, is also applied to all other creatures, and also to nefesh chaya. I just said in the beginning, Teitze hord nefesh chaya. Let the earth produce nefesh chaya, a living soul, a living creature. And Adam became nefesh chaya after the neshama was put into his blood. And what is the difference? So Rashi explained the difference is, but this nefesh chaya of the Adam is chaya shebekulam, is superior chaya. It's a different kind of chayas, more chaya than the others. There is a certain equivalency. There is a certain commonality. They're all living, but nefesh chaya of Adam is in a different category. What is it? You taste it by das, sechel and das, that he has something that they don't have, which is sechel and das, and awareness and knowledge. What is this awareness and knowledge that distinguishes the human being from all other creatures? So I want to give an extremely, I think we discussed it the other day, an extremely simple, down-to-earth illustration of the concept. We all know that 1 and 1 is 2. Now this union that 1 and 1 is 2, there is the practical, the worldly element in this. That if you take 1 and put 1 next to it, if you count it over, you'll have 2. There is not an additional concept here, that this is no longer 1, this is now 2. This 2 is a formulation of 2 ones. The ones remain as they were before. So before you had 1 1, now you have 2 ones. It's identical entity. 1 1 and 2 ones. Or 10 ones for that matter. There is not any kind of an effect, of a superior effect of the fact that now you have more than one. This is how this is on the lower than sechel level. On a physical level. In sechel, you come to realize, then you realize that two is more than one. It's not just two ones. It's a different principle. The Apostle says, "Tevim hashnayim minho echad." The two together are much superior than one.
Much superior, more than the sum of their parts? What's much superior?
That's right. Two ones, if two people are each, there's a posik like that. It's posik like this. Hayechu shnayim. It's going to be a little challenge, but I'd like you to think. Posik says, Hayechu shnayim yachod v'heim le'niyod. Is it conceivable that two people are walking together and they did not have a rendezvous? They did not arrange for meaning. You can have two people walking side by side in the street. What is supposed to say? V'heim le'niyod. The answer is they can walk side by side, but they're not walking yardov. They're not walking together. They may each go in the same direction, individually. There's nothing that is encompassing that leads them in the same direction together. That they should go in the same direction together, that's a completely different phenomenon.
So too by the number 2, it's not just a group of two ones. It's somehow imbued with a different spirit.
Different significance, different value. And that value begins at the sechel level. Why is it beginning in the sechel level? Because only in sechel do you project what you can do with this one, on this two. And what is the significance of gathering two instead of being one? We have in Torah, in Halacha, we have all kinds of different numbers. 10 form a completely different reality. 10 people together form a different reality. They can do a Dover Shebikdusha, they're a minion. Less than 10, you don't have that. They're 10 individuals. They're not 10 individuals. They're 10 Yidden that joined together, and they are now encompassed and related through by a different principle.
And we talk about these numbers because we're getting to nishmat chaim. What do we?
Yes, because I want to understand the principle. So Rashi says, "Here are the nefesh chaya. All other animals also are called nefesh chaya, but the Adam is chaya shebekulam. It's a different level of chayas. And Teisa beidas. What's in Teisa das? What is this additional das? If das means that he knows that how many ones he has here, what's the significance of that? It's not das. He knows he can count 1 and 2, and so you have 2 ones.
Okay, so this is a way of illustrating man sees purpose.
No, not purpose. Value.
value where...
It's a different category of a presence.
Because he deals with value rather than materiality.
That's right. Value, okay, now that you mentioned this, it's a little too fast, but nevertheless, you mentioned it. Value is based on ratzon. If there is no significance from your ratzon, okay, I said ratzon is a very elusive, very difficult thing to identify. Yet we all have a ratzon. So to introduce ratzon, I want to bring this principle. There's a common expression in chassidus, which is mentioned many times, that every person has ratzon lichiyos, the will to live. Now, the world of psychology and all kinds of different stupid views of this phenomenon, it's all based on some kind of enticement. You give a person a luscious meal, and and all of a sudden you arouse a ratzon in him. He wants to live because he wants to taste the meal, or whatever it is that you entice him with. In the world, ratzon is identified identically to taiva. You want something, it's pleasant. As we explained over here, the inyan from ahava, we explained ahava is based on the inyan that this is part of his life purpose. Not that he experiences a pleasantness by this experience.
So this is like Yediyah Shlili. They are reducing everything to survival or to rewards and punishments. But we're saying there's an inner reality to love or to life.
Well, that's right. First of all, is the ratzon. I'd like to quote and see what we can relate to that quote. The Rebbe says in Tanya, actually this is now, if the oisius that created the world, oisius that are imbued in everything in the world, should we be drawn from the world, chas v'sholem, then all would be revert back to naught. Hoya klei hoya, as if like it were never there. So this is all fine, but what does chas v'sholem come in here? Like it, God forbid you should think of that. Chas v'sholem. What's a chas v'sholem? What will be so tragic? It's there and it's not there. We can relate to chas v'sholem to if there's a suffering involved. There's no suffering. Poof. It's just withdrawn, there's nothing there. So can we relate to this chas v'sholem? Hello?
Yeah. Well,
I'm not going to ask you to explain. I just want to. Don't worry. I'm not going to ask you to explain. Because that's an honest answer. Can you relate to that statement that this is chas v'sholem?
think so.
Well, once is good, huh?
What?
We relate to it, then we could convince ourselves that we don't after. As long as we relate to it to begin with, it's okay.
Well, what do we say?
If a person could relate to it and then they're like, wait, could I really relate to it? Forget about that. As long as they could relate to it. That's the main thing, no?
It was Purim some years ago. You had the whole discussion with the guys on this topic.
Yep. The explosion. The whole world was bombed.
The world was withdrawn, disappeared, no suffering. It's on this.
Yeah.
Right.
But the basis for the God forbid is that it points to a supreme value that nothing can be said. We're using this to allude to an inner
sense of the value of life. I want it, not because I want to avoid pain, or because I want to experience pleasantness. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya these days is the Chassidus Amuna. Where he says that the Ha'ora, the oil that came through in the Oasis had Aces that created the world. He says Shatava Hatoiv Laheitiv. In other words, this is what's from Tanya. Because the nature of the good is lahativ, is to do good, or to give benefit. This is a brief allusion to something extremely deep. The Rebbe created the world not because there's any kind of a need for it. But because the Rebbe wanted to give benefit of his own good. Because it is the nature of the good to give of his experience to others. Laheitiv. Which means that this which was given in this creation, let's understand, before the Rebbe created the world, before Bereshis, there was no world. So what elicited that creation? There was nothing there. After Bereshis, once there is already an earth and a sky and the water, okay, let's make order over here. Let's divide the water from push the water away from the dry land, let the dry land develop. There's something there that you want to kind of show its value, allow it to express itself. There was nothing there. What initiated the whole creation? It's divine goodness, truth, that initiated the whole creation. And thus, the entire creation is actually reflective of this divine goodness. This is the whole basis. This is the ratzon behind it all. It does not have a ratzon of itself to be. But because it was given a taste, it was given that divine will, this is why it wants to be. This is a super ratzon. It's not a worldly ratzon. It's something that preceded world. And this is where, this is the basic will in the world to proceed and develop, because that is, it has a divine will to be, to live. Like we said, every person has a ratzon. This ratzon brings along with it in the reality of the willer, of the one who wants it, and that becomes the basis for the sechel that further develops afterwards. The sechel is based on the ratzon. Is this good? If there were no ratzon, there would be no good or bad.
Wait, ratzon seems to be way superior to good and bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but ratzon, it's true, way superior. But without ratzon, there cannot be any good and bad either.
Same way, without hergesh utzmi,
That's much lower.
there'd be no meters.
No meters. Like I mentioned the other day, the posuk says, people become so despondent. It's a posuk in Tantini. Kol oichil tesayev nafsho. All food they despise. Why do they despise food? They have no taste for food. They have no chayas to eat. So ratzon is the primary state that provides for all pursuit, starting with sechel, going into midas, and going into action. This is why the Alter Rebbe says, if the Oisias Aser Amoris would be withdrawn, chas v'sholem, these Oisias are giving the world a ratzon eliki. Chas v'sholem should be withdrawn. Not because the world will be suffering, but because we withdrew that's kind of a truth and hid it away.
Withdrew this kind of truth, because here world and truth are kind of synonymous.
The world, truth is what begat the world. Teva hatevel heitiv. So the Rebbe explains over here that there could be something akin to midos, which is actually not midos at all, it's ratzon. Like the love of father and son, it's not the love in the proper way of in the proper interpretation. It is just like a person wants to live, like that, ratzon lichyos, he wants his son. It's part of the reality of what God has given him, of his godly presence. This is that midas have come directly from mitzat, not through sechel, and not through the sensing of his own hergesh atzmo. Okay, this is it for this morning. Hi, Eliyahu.